cosmic outlaw, the legend of Roan Hale in a galaxy ruled by unbreakable codes and cold machines. One man discovered the most dangerous algorithm of all, defiance. Part 6. The game of smiles and shadows. Mira had always been strong, but the days following her father's execution tested that strength in ways she had never imagined. She rose each morning while the twin suns were still faint glows on the horizon. The spire's high chambers wrapped in a chill that seeped through stone walls and settled deep in her bones. The air carried the sterile tang of recycled ventilation mixed with faint traces of incense from the corridors below, a scent that clung to everything like a reminder of captivity. She chose her gowns, carefully simple cuts in morning black or subdued gray that allowed her to blend into shadows. Fabrics soft against skin yet heavy with the weight of grief. Her walks through the spire became rituals of precision. She timed them to the changing of guards, when hallways filled briefly with a shuffle of boots and low murmurs, or to the bustle of servants carrying silver trays that gleamed in slanted light. She would pause near council antechambers where doors stood slightly ajar, or linger in alcoves draped with ancient tapestries whose thick weave absorbed sound and carried the musty scent of centuries. There she would stand perfectly still, breath slow and shallow, every sense attuned to the voices drifting through cracks. A corpulent bishop might complain in a voice thick with wine and self-importance, rings clinking against crystal as he gestured about delayed tithe shipments from distant villages. A scaled Xeno merchant would respond with a low, vibrating hiss that slurred words into something almost hypnotic, describing cargo of rare spices bound along the Raven's Pass in 5 days. The escort light because humans grow complacent in their own forests. Another collaborator voice, smooth yet edged with nervous haste, would detail medical supplies for elite clients. Guarded by only a dozen men under a captain too arrogant to fear bandits, Mira absorbed it all, the words settling into her mind like seeds in fertile soil. She returned to her chambers where Ellyn waited, small hands clasped tight, eyes bright with shared purpose. Together they transcribed the intelligence on thin bark paper, Mira's hand steady despite the storm inside, letters elegant and small. The notes folded tiny and disappeared tucked into warm loaf centers, hidden beneath false bottoms and laundry baskets, pressed into hollow shoe heels. Ellyn carried them into danger. The girl moved through service corridors with practiced invisibility, basket balanced on hip, the bread's yeasty warmth a comforting weight against her side. Sweat gathered beneath her cap and trickled slow paths down her back, carrying the faint salt scent of fear even in cool evening air. Every step toward the forest edge stretched endless, heart beating loud in ears, breath held shallow as drone lights swept overhead in slow, searching arcs. Close calls came often, once a guard's hand rummaged deep in the basket, fingers brushing perilously near the hidden note while she stood frozen, pulse thundering, the paper growing damp against her palm. He grunted and waved her on. She walked steady until out of sight, then ran, legs burning, tears mixing with cooling sweat on cheeks. The notes always reached Roan. He received them in the deepening green of Sherwood Camp, unfolding each precious bark by firelights that painted warm, flickering gold across his face and the faces of his growing band. Mira's words pulled him across impossible distance, the careful intelligence, the quiet courage shining through every line, the personal threads that wrapped around his heart and pulled tighter with every reading. The bowstring he carried slung across his chest bit deeper into muscle with each note, a constant pressure mirroring the ache of separation, the fear for her safety, the longing that grew with every whispered line. I stood at the viewport today and watched clouds drift over Sherwood. Thought of you beneath them. The first ambush flowed from her words like natural consequence. A convoy of rare off-world spices and vital medical supplies, route and timing precise from overheard council talk. Roan planned beside the low fire, voice quiet but burning, the merry men leaning in as flames crackled and popped, casting dancing shadows on determined faces. They struck at twilight in Raven's Pass, where high rock walls rose draped in hanging vines heavy with evening dew, the air cool and thick with resin from crowding trees. The convoy rumbled through on groaning hovercarts, guards marching with lazy swagger, voices carrying boasts of rich bonuses waiting in Lockhaven. Roan's bird call rose perfect from high branches. Arrows sang silent through misty air, pinning sleeves to carts or thudding into ground with deliberate warning. Guards spun, stunners rising with sharp ozone crackle. Jonah dropped from vines like living thunder, quarterstaff cracking armor and deep, bone-jarring thuds that echoed off stone. Will and much loosed volley after volley, arrows finding marks with satisfying thunk. Tuckin barreled forward, swinging, laughter booming rich and fearless through the pass. The fight became pure motion, steel ringing sharp against alloy, grunts echoing loud off rock walls, ozone sharp and biting from discharged blasters. Roan moved through it with deadly gracebow discarded, short sword flashing silver in fading light, body twisting fluid between blows, boots finding perches on slick stone as he parried, riposted, spun, A guard lunged heavy. Roan parried with ringing clash, blade skidding along armor seam and shower of sparks. Another fired wild, bolt scorched Vine inches away, heat flashing hot on cheek. Nona's staff swept 3 men off feet in single mighty arc. Tucken wrestled the captain to ground, pinning with knee while delivering cheerful sermon on greed. It ended swift and clean. Guards bound gently but firmly. Cargo opened to release waves of exotic spice scent, warm, intoxicating, filling the pass like foreign perfume. Medical packs gleamed white and precious. They took what served the needy, left the rest with clear message. The forest takes its own tax now. Word spread like wildfire through hidden villages. The outlaw Roan Hale robs the rich, feeds the hungry. Mira heard whispers from servants in the spire, a secret warmth blooming slow in her chest, easing grief's cold grip for precious moments. But Kane's attention grew heavier, more insistent. He summoned her often now, gifts arriving unbidden, jewels cold and heavy against skin she refused to wear. Gowns folded away untouched in drawers that smelled faintly of cedar. His offers carried new urgency, voice dropping low across polished desks, hand reaching once to brush her arm with fingers that felt clammy even through fabric sleeve. She deflected with practiced grace soft questions about estate ledgers, gentle pleas for time to mourn each encounter, leaving her retreating to chambers where hands trembled against closed doors and rage burned hot behind eyes until tears came silent in the dark. Ellyn held her then, small arms strong around shaking shoulders. "He'll never have you, milady, not while breath remains in us." Notes flew thicker, carried through ever greater risk, more convoys, auction dates, guard weaknesses overheard in perfumed halls. Ambush followed ambush, each born from Mira's careful words, executed with growing skill and shared laughter. One through misty glade where vines hung thick for swinging drops, air cool and damp on skin. Another in narrow ford where water churned white and cold around legs during fight, splashes sharp against heated bodies. The merry men grew legendary, stories told soft around hidden fires. Romantic tension deepened with every success, every narrow escape. A meeting after the second ambush in the hollow of their childhood, a moonlight filtering silver through leaves thick as curtains, night air cool and heavy with resin that wrapped around them like the forest's own embrace. Mira arrived breathless from the run, cloak discarded in shadows, hair loose and dark, strands clinging damp to neck from effort and evening mist. Sweat from the journey traced faint glistening paths along her throat and collarbone. Carrying the clean salt scent of determination mingled with faint traces of spire incense still clinging to her skin. Roan waited in the hollow's mouth, every muscle held taut with weeks of longing, bowstring across chest pressing deep into muscle with every breath that came quicker at her approach. Moonlight caught the hard lines of his shoulders, the shadowed strength in arms that had swung sword and staff in her name, the faint sheen of sweat from his own vigil on neck and brow. When she stepped close, his breath caught sharp taking in the way moonlight silvered her skin, the rise and fall of her chest beneath morning gown, the green depths of eyes bright with defiance and something softer, warmer. They moved together slow, as if the air itself had thickened sweet around them. His hands rose gentle to her face, thumbs brushing damp strands of hair from cheek, feeling the silky fineness slide like cool water through calloused fingers. Her hands settled on his chest, palms pressing over a heart that thundered wild beneath tunic. Feeling the hard tension and muscle coiled from constant vigilance and weeks of wanting, their eyes held hers, searching his with quiet wonder at finding him real after so many dreamed nights, his tracing every curve of face as if memorizing anew. Thoughts passed silent, hers of cold tower nights where his memory alone warmed her. His of every broadcast that might have stolen her forever. Lips met soft at first, tasting salt of sweat and night air, breath mingling warm and quick, then deeper slow exploration, gentle pressure building to urgent need, hands tracing discovery, his fingers threading silky hair at nape, hers sliding up to neck where pulse leaped frantic beneath skin, bodice pressed closer, heat rising steady against cool night. The oak's rough bark at her back grounding his world narrowed at touch and scent and sound of shared breathing that grew ragged sweet. They drew apart only when distant patrol lights flickered on the horizon. Hands lingering fingers, tracing arms slow, foreheads resting together, breath still shared. "I live for these moments," she whispered, voice huskied with emotion that trembled soft on the air. "And I fight for the day there, all we have," he answered low, thumb brushing her lower lip with reverence. The merry men teased without mercy on his return, voices warm around the fire. Yona's deep chuckle rumbled first. "Roan's got moonlight in his eyes tonight," Roll grinned sharp, "and leaves in his hair." Tower climbing agrees with him, Much laughed Rich. "When's the wedding under the oak, chief?" "I'll bake bread big enough for all Sherwood," Tuck and raise flask. "To love that defies towers and tyrants both, may it burn bright as any fire we light." Roan bore it with rare, quiet smile, but fear for her gnawed constant beneath joy. Mira's inner world deepened with everyday grief. Her father a constant ache like bruise never quite healed. Rage at Kane's presumption burning steady hot behind calm eyes. Guilt for risks. Ellyn took sharp as thorn in heart, longing for Roan physical in quiet hours when spire walls closed cold and lonely around her. Yet every note sent, every ambush succeeded from her careful words, every stolen kiss strengthened resolve. There were winning small victories in shadow. But Kane's web tightened slow and sure, and time slipped away like moonlight through leaves.